I thought that I was just bad at resting. I thought that my body and my brain were just broken, and for some reason, I could not rest or relax, and there was something wrong with me because I couldn't do it. Every time I tried, I felt more anxious, more behind, more scattered and frustrated than before, and it definitely did not feel restful at all. My entire life, I basically thought rest was one thing, which was essentially doing nothing. And every time I tried to do that, because in my logical side of my brain, I knew that resting and relaxing and taking a break was a good thing for you. But every time I tried, I felt so overwhelmed, frustrated, and anxious that I hated doing it. So I would just force myself to keep pushing through, working until I hit burnout. And then I still didn't learn my lesson and I burnt out again. And that second time, everything fell apart. My entire life crumbled. And it really forced me to take a step back and kind of reevaluate how I was living my life and how I was showing up in my goals, in my career, in my business, in my life in general. And I started to learn a few things. So, on this journey of trying to have more peace, more relaxation in my life, I started trying to do different things, but when I would try to rest and relax, I was still feeling really anxious and behind, and my to-do list was constantly running through the back of my mind. And I would start to feel even more guilt and more shame, wondering, why can't I just relax? Why can't I just calm down? And it was really, really frustrating. And it wasn't until I started to try new things in my life, when I started trying to focus more on like hobbies and having fun and things that bring me joy, that I realized there was a disconnect in how I was thinking about rest. I started to recognize this pattern of I didn't need physical rest. I didn't need to lay on the couch and do nothing. I already have, like most of us, a pretty sedentary life. Even though I'm getting 10K steps a day, I'm working out 4 or 5 times a week, I still sit at my computer for 8, 9, 10 hours a day when I'm working. So I'm more sedentary during each day than I am active. And I realized that I didn't need the physical rest of relaxing my body. What I truly needed was a break for my mind. My brain is constantly going. I'm thinking about all the things that I need to do, all the things that I want to achieve, the problems that I'm trying to solve, trying to be creative. All of this stuff is mental work, not physical work. So I was trying to rest the wrong way. And that's when I started to realize that there is a difference between physical rest and mental rest. So as I started focusing more on hobbies and having fun, so I started doing things like puzzles and rollerblading and playing golf and going outside in nature, I realized that although these things are using my body physically, I'm doing things, I felt more relaxed, more present, more calm, and I felt like I had a break from that constant chatter in my brain. When I started diving into this a little bit more, I realized that the things that pull you into the present, the things that require just enough brain power to stay focused, but not add to your mental load, are the things that are actually going to give you that mental rest. I shared this on my Substack and then I shared it on Instagram, and I had so many people agreeing that they feel the exact same way. They've always wondered why there was this disconnect, why they felt like resting and relaxing wasn't really doing it for them. And I decided I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into rest and what it actually is and how it shows up in our lives and how it can actually restore and fulfill us. And I found some really interesting research by Dr. Sandra Dalton-Smith that there are 7 types of rest. And I just found it so interesting and so validating. And it really blew my mind because, like I said in the beginning, I feel like a lot of us think of rest as one thing, and recognizing that there are different ways to rest that serve different purposes allowed me to start integrating more of this into my life and actually start to feel restored and rested and relaxed and more peaceful and all of these things that I want to have in my life, which ultimately is giving me more capacity and more ability to show up for my goals and perform at a higher level that I couldn't before when I was constantly overwhelmed and stressed out. I don't know if you've recognized this, but when you are in that constant state of overwhelm, stress, anxiety, and just feeling really run down, you are actually underperforming all of the time, which to someone that is a high achiever, that is ambitious, that is type A, perfectionist, eldest daughter vibes like I am, that realization can be really hard to deal with because as someone who wants to always be at the top of their game, recognizing that you're not can cause even more stress. So today we're going to go through these 7 types of rest so that we can pull you out of that spiral so that you can start to recognize what areas you need rest in and how to actually fulfill that versus trying to force yourself to couch rot and then feeling guilty and more anxious than you were before. All right, so let's start off with rest type number 1, which is physical rest, the one that we're all probably the most familiar with, the one that we always think about when we think of rest. And this is obvious. Your body is tired, your body needs rest. Now, there are actually 2 types of physical rest that you can take. Number 1 is that passive type of physical rest where you are sleeping, napping, laying on the couch, watching Netflix. But then there's also active physical rest, which is the type of rest that I think most of us need. So most of us sitting at a desk all day, like I said, we have this very sedentary life where our bodies are more stagnant. It's different if you're working like a physically demanding job where yes, your body is probably tired and needs that more passive rest. But if you're sitting most of the day, girl, you need some active physical rest. And this is to just remove that stagnation from your body. And it can be something really, really gentle. We're not talking about doing a HIIT workout or going for a 10-mile run. I'm talking about a casual walk around the block with your dog, gentle stretching, yoga, maybe some mobility work. You're just kind of making sure that your body can move in the ways that it's supposed to, and you're just feeling good. I often find that when I'm sitting at my desk a lot of the day, if I start to feel like kind of achy from just sitting, if I go for a walk or if I use my desk treadmill or I just do some quick little stretches, I feel more energized than I did before. All right, rest type number 2, and this was the one that completely changed my life once I figured it out. This is mental rest. And I feel like a lot of women are going to find this one really helpful because for myself, and I know for a lot of you that I've talked to, a lot of women that I've coached, it is the nonstop 24/7 mental chatter that is exhausting us the most. We are thinking of our to-do list. We're thinking of appointments we need to schedule. What are we going to make for dinner every single night? Whose birthdays are coming up? Just this never-ending list of to-dos, reminders, and decisions that we need to make, and it's constantly running through our brains, which can be very, very exhausting. And one of the biggest negative consequences of this mental chatter is that it's detrimental to your sleep. I don't know about you, but when my head hits the pillow, it's like an immediate trigger for let's think about everything and anything, and let's stress about things, and let's have some anxiety, and let's think of some ideas, and all of these to-do lists. Oh, you forgot to do this. Oh my gosh, we need to do this. We need to add this to the list. And it's tiring and it makes it hard to fall asleep. Maybe it makes it hard for you to stay asleep because you're waking up thinking of these things. So again, when you're physically resting, your brain is not turned off. You're still ruminating, you're still thinking through these things. It's still running in the back of your mind, and you're not actually getting that relaxation that you're looking for. What you're looking for when you need a mental rest is activities that are just enough to keep your brain engaged in the present moment, but not so hard or complex or heavy that they're adding to that mental load that you already have. So I find that things like doing a puzzle, playing chess, rollerblading, going for a walk in nature, painting, all of these things are just enough that I have to focus on the present moment and be engaged and be present, but it's not so much that I'm adding more stress to my plate, because that's the last thing that we want to do here. And I just want to say, if you are a fellow elder millennial woman or guy, if you have not skated, like I have not rollerbladed or skated in probably over 25 years. I just got a pair of rollerblades and it has been so much fun. Like I feel like a kid in the best way possible. We've just been going up and down our block, around our neighborhood. But this weekend we want to go out to the causeway and just skate on the beach, and it's going to be so much fun. But it's been just so fun, like so fun to just be a kid and do something silly and fun that has like Nothing to do with being productive or anything like that. Highly recommend if you haven't done that in a while. It definitely just brings back that youthful energy and excitement. Okay, now we're going to dive into the additional types of rest that I had no idea about before, but now that I know, they make so much sense. Number 3 is sensory rest. Now, this is a big one, and I've been doing a little bit of this without knowing it, but now that I know, I'm going to implement it more in my life. Essentially, sensory rest is removing all of the sensory input that we have around us 24/7. If you think about how constantly overstimulated we are in today's society, it's actually crazy. The notifications, the screens, the lights, the sounds, all of it, we are just constantly bombarded in every way, shape, or form in our senses, and it can be exhausting for us. So when you take the time to kind of turn down that dial on whatever you can, turn off all your notifications, turn off your screens in general, turn off your lights, use natural light or have low lights. Once like the sun starts going down, no big lights in my house. We have lamps that are more of like that amber color, and I'm trying to create this cozy atmosphere where I can feel relaxed in it. Another thing that I started doing that I feel like has been really, really great is taking dark showers. So, not having the lights on, not playing a podcast or YouTube video in the background. Like, I felt like I was always having to be in this learning mode, but just being present in the moment, removing as many sensory inputs as I could. Something simple like just sitting down to meditate, whether it's in silence, which I personally don't enjoy that. I like to have either like some frequency music that I have playing or a gentle guided meditation, but laying in the dark with your eyes closed, listening to something like that, going for a walk in nature with no headphones, no music, no podcast, nothing playing, just enjoying the sounds of nature around you, or even something as simple as sitting on your patio, reading a fiction book, something silly, something light that's not going to make you think too hard. Enjoying a cup of coffee, watching the sunrise, watching the sunset. All of these things can be really relaxing for your senses. So I want you to just think about how can you remove as much of that noise and input from your day as you can. I like to try to do this on a regular basis. So for example, I have focus modes on my phone. So in the mornings and the evenings, it automatically turns on. I don't have notifications 24/7. I don't have any social media notifications that pop up on my phone. Most of the time, the only thing that comes through, especially during my workday, is my family and some very, very close friends. Nobody else can get through to me. And then on the weekends or in the evenings, having that like zero screen time to just let myself be. Rest type number 4 is creative rest. Now, a lot of times when you are constantly being creative or being a problem solver, you are depleting your own creative reserves in your mind. Because like I mentioned with the sensory overload, if we're constantly being bombarded and we're constantly having this input, we're not allowing ourselves time to have that downtime to process things and to allow our brains to do its thing and actually come up with more creative solutions and creative, output. So giving ourselves that space, and that can look like either consuming creativity in a low stakes way, going to a museum, going for a walk in nature, listening to music, and having zero expectation of yourself from that. So just allowing yourself to consume the beauty of things around you or, life in general, just allowing that to come into you without having any expectation of output or response to it. But it can also, on the flip side, be allowing yourself to be creative with no expectation of anything coming from it. For example, when I was reading about this type of rest, the first thing I thought about was when I go to my pottery painting studio. I am not going in there expecting myself to create a masterpiece. I'm not going in there expecting myself to become a pottery wizard who then goes on to sell my pottery pieces. I'm going in there to enjoy myself, to have fun, to make something that, like, this is not one of the ones I've made, but like I paint a mug and then when I use it, a couple days later, I'm like, oh, I made this. And it's like, it's fun. It's exciting. I enjoy it. It's time to myself that I can just shut my brain off and just be. Things along that nature where you're just having zero expectation and just creating for the fun of it can be great ways to kind of restore and refill that creativity within yourself. Essentially, you want to think about not having this mindset of needing to optimize your output or to have something stellar come out of your creativity. It's just a muscle that you're working and doing it in a fun way that you enjoy without any expectation. Rest type number 5 is emotional rest. And this is for my other eldest daughter, type A, people pleasing type of women out there. When you feel like you have to constantly be on, or if you feel like you have to put on a performance of yourself, a specific version of yourself in order to show up for people in the way that you feel like you need to show up for them, it can be very draining. It can be very exhausting when you spend your days that way. Or if, for example, you are constantly managing the emotions of others while trying to balance or suppress your own. If you are the advice giver that everyone's comes to all the time, but you feel like you can't go to anyone else for advice or anyone else for help, okay? It can be very, very exhausting and very heavy on your emotional well-being. You need to be able to take rest from that. You need to be able to take a break from that. And that can look different for different people. So this might look like being around people that you feel like you can be completely 100 million% yourself. You don't feel any need to perform, to mask, to, step into a caretaker type of role. You can just be. Or it could be that you need solitude in order to refill that cup. For me, most of the time, I feel like solitude does it for me. If I can just be on my own, if I can just kind of let myself, work through my thoughts, work through my ideas, that is the way that I refill that emotional cup when I feel exhausted in that manner. I think this is why I fell in love with running so much, because I'm just on my own. When you are doing a monotonous motion with your body, like you're just kind of in autopilot when you're running, like you don't have to really think about what you're doing with your body in the way that you would, say, if you're weightlifting. You need to make sure you're paying attention to your form and all of that. But when you're running, you're just running, right? You get into a flow zone and then you can let your mind go. And I think that that has been so crucial for me in helping me to heal my emotional well-being over the past few years. So if you are someone who, like I said, eldest daughter, caretaker, you're a leader, you have a lot of people who lean on you, come to you, rely on you, you want to make sure that you are taking time to have that emotional rest, whatever that might look like for you. Rest type number 6 is social rest. And this is the quality of the relationships that you have in your life. If you have people around you who are energy vampires, okay, they are just draining you, they're exhausting to be around, they complain all the time, they never have anything good to say, they do that like passive aggressive tearing you down, but they say it in a way where it like they're trying, they're saying it nicely, but it's not really that nice. People like that, you need to limit your time with or remove them from your life. Sometimes that's not possible, but making sure that you are limiting that time. And then on the flip side, people who fill you up, who energize you, who excite you, who are doing big things with their life, who encourage you to do big things with your life, you want to maximize your time around them. You want to be around them as much as possible because a rising tide lifts all ships, right? When you're around people who are like that, it helps you to do more in your life. Being intentional with who you spend your time with, saying no, or being intentional with your social obligations as well. And I know, again, going back to the people pleasing type of person, I definitely fall into that category. You sometimes feel like you can't say no, or you feel like you have to do things, you have to go spend time with people, you have to go to events that you actually don't want to do. And I'm telling you now, give yourself that permission to say no. Okay. We only have one life. We need to make sure that we are living it in the way that we want to live it. No one else can live our life for us. No one else is paying our bills. We need to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves the best that we can. Rest type number 7 is spiritual rest. Now, this is about belonging, purpose, connecting to something bigger than yourself. This doesn't have to be about religion or faith, but it definitely can be. I know for myself, my spiritual rest was definitely leaning into my faith, building my relationship with God, and prayer. That has completely restored my life from where I was a few years ago, even just a year ago. It can also be meditation, journaling, gratitude practice, being in nature, working within your community, focusing on meaningful work, whatever that is to you, whatever is going to fill that sense of purpose and that connection to something bigger than just yourself. That's what that spiritual rest is going to do. If you feel like you've been disconnected, in autopilot, kind of feeling like you're just getting through the day to day and nothing is really exciting you, nothing is really feeling like it's driving you, then you definitely could be lacking in that spiritual rest. And something that you can do to help you, start that process and see what's working for you is to just slow down and take some time to think about what's important to you. What do you value? What do you feel like at the end of your life, if you could accomplish or do or become, would make it feel fulfilling and like you lived a good life. All right, so those are the 7 types of rest. I hope that one or two or a few of these maybe spoke to you, because like I said in the beginning, what sent me down this path of trying to figure out rest and relaxation was going through burnout. And that is a terrible place to be. It takes a really long time to recover from it. And I want to help other women avoid that if possible. Focusing on our nervous system, ensuring that we are taking care of it on a consistent basis and not just thinking about it as an afterthought or when we hit that point where we've already burnt out and now we have to work through that and fix it. I want you to avoid that as much as possible. Make that mindset switch that rest is not lazy. It's actually the foundation to your productivity and allow you to perform at a higher capacity, achieve things that you want to achieve, probably even faster if you have a relaxed and functioning brain versus being a tired zombie all the time. I want you to think about what's draining you right now. Where do you feel like you are lacking? And look through these 7 types of rest. I'll also just include them in the description below and a brief description so you can kind of look at that. But look at the 7 types of rest and think about where do you feel like you are lacking and how can you start to implement practices in your regular life, not just once in a while, but on a weekly basis at the very least. Where can you start to put some of these practices so that you are filling your cup and feeling your best all the time? All right, if you enjoyed today's video, which I hope you did, please like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments below which type of rest you're going to focus on first. And make sure you share this with somebody that you know needs to take a little bit of a chill pill. I know I did. And I will see you next week. Bye.